Part 41. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 401. Zhu Feng was so powerful that he had nowhere to vent. As soon as Zhu Yun appeared, he immediately sensed his location. Compared with the Lord of Naihuo City, Zhu Feng has more control over the demon refining tower. Although the realms are far apart, there are no monsters in the tower, and the demon refining tower does not need to convert energy to suppress it. This is easier for Zhu Feng. However, Zhu Feng's speed in the tower was much slower. But Zhu Feng had the confidence of the demon refining tower and was not afraid of any dangers he would encounter. Zhu Yun didn't know that Zhu Feng was coming here. At this time, he was flying towards the light gate. Are there no people and no monsters left in this demon refining tower? Zhu Yun was wondering in his heart, but he saw a figure flying towards him with a sword in the distance. His heart tightened and he immediately stopped. He didn't recognize Zhu Feng, he just felt strange. Why are there still monks in the foundation building stage in the demon refining tower? At that time, didn't the Lord of Naihuo City sacrifice all the monks, even those in the elixir formation stage, to blood sacrifice? Why do people still come here? Moreover, when he was outside the demon refining tower, there was not a single monk in the foundation establishment stage. Could it be that someone arrived at the swamp and accidentally came in? Thinking of this, Zhu Yun slowed down and flew over there. He wanted to ask the visitor if he had encountered the monster beasts that had previously surrounded the demon refining tower. Zhu Yun didn't expect it was Zhu Feng, and Zhu Feng naturally didn't expect it was Zhu Feng, but he came prepared. Seeing Zhu Yun flying out of thin air, his eyes sparkled. Humph, it's true that you can't be my opponent in the foundation establishment stage. I just want to practice with those in the core formation stage to see how strong I am now. Zhu Feng quickly immersed himself in his mind and formed a connection with the demon refining tower. In an instant, a suppressive force from the demon refining tower condensed on his hand. But suddenly, he saw the person stopping in the air. Zhu Feng, it's you. Hearing this familiar voice, Zhu Feng was stunned for a moment, and then laughed ferociously. Ha ha ha, Zhu Yun, I didn't expect it to be you. When Zhu Yun flew closer, he found that Zhu Feng was only the size of a 10-year-old child, so he used the void-breaking spiritual eye technique. It doesn't matter if you don't look at it. As soon as he looked at it, he was immediately surprised. At that time, he did not directly abolish Zhu Feng, thus allowing him to be taken away by Xianxia. And when Xianxia returned to the demon refining tower, he never saw Zhu Feng again. But I didn't expect to encounter it at this time. Just as Zhu Feng's words came, a boundless pressure appeared out of thin air and came towards Zhu Yun to suppress it. Not good. Zhu Yun was very familiar with this familiar aura. It was the power that suppressed the monster when he came in holding the golden dragon by 7 inches. Why does Zhu Feng know this kind of suppressive power? Could it be that? Bad thoughts came to Zhu Yun's mind. Without hesitation, he immediately used the thunder escape technique. His body flashed one after another, barely avoiding the range of the pressure. I didn't expect you to have such a mysterious escape technique. Zhu Feng's sneak attack failed, and his face showed a little surprise. I thought that I was invincible in the demon refining tower, but I didn't expect that facing Zhu Yun, this method of suppression would not have much effect. As everyone knows, this is because his realm is weaker. No matter how deep his connection with the demon refining tower is, his ability to control the demon refining tower is still limited before reaching the realm. Just like Ergu, who was abducted by the Heirizong into the mine at that time, he was in the Qi refining period and held Menghui's high-grade magic weapon, but he was unable to exert the true power of the sword at all. Only by relying on the power of the knife can one kill the foundation stage. This is the case with Zhu Feng. Zhu Feng, you can actually control the demon refining tower. Zhu Yun was even more surprised. He didn't dare to touch an ancient magic weapon like the demon refining tower even in the Dan formation stage. He was really crazy in the foundation establishment stage. Wish Yun. Zhu Feng first shouted coldly, and then said, "It's strange, isn't it? Because I am a genius, and you are a waste. So even if you are in the demon refining tower, you cannot obtain the supreme treasure like the demon refining tower." After saying that, he concentrated again, controlled the pressure and suddenly pressed towards Zhu Yun. Feeling the power coming from almost a higher level, Zhu Yun did not dare to linger any longer. His body flashed continuously, once again avoiding the range of the pressure. Based on the extent to which Xianxia was suppressed at that time, he guessed that if he were trapped, his strength would definitely be suppressed to the early stage of foundation building. But when I saw Zhu Feng, he was already in the middle stage of foundation building. When the gap in realms is smoothed out, you will no longer be your opponent. Thinking of this, Zhu Yun showed a serious look, held a bunch of heaven-gathering thunder talisman in his hand, and said, "Zhu Feng, I don't want to kill you. If you are disconnected from this demon refining tower, I will spare your life." Shameless talk. Zhu Feng's expression also turned cold, and he said, "You alone can kill me? Let me disconnect from the demon refining tower. I'm afraid you are interested in this treasure? If you have the guts, come and grab it yourself." He has experienced a lot, and he used a provocative strategy when he spoke. As long as Zhu Yun takes the bait and dares to charge towards him, and seizes the opportunity, he can trap Zhu Yun. As for the talismans in his hands, Zhu Feng didn't pay attention at all. The tower is his, and the heaven and earth in the tower are also his. Unless Zhu Yun uses his own spiritual power, he can completely make Zhu Yun unable to move any power in the tower. Stubborn. Zhu Yun cursed loudly and said angrily, "If that's the case, then I will clean up the door for the Zhu family today." After saying that, he suddenly raised the heaven-gathering thunder talisman in his hand. More than a dozen talismans rose into the sky and turned into ashes in an instant. Dark clouds appeared out of thin air, and the surrounding area suddenly became dark. Boom! There was thunder in the dark clouds, and this sudden terrifying aura shocked Zhu Feng. But when he knew that his opponent was Zhu Yunzi, he was ready to use the power of the demon refining tower at any time, and formed a connection with the black ball without hesitation, disrupting the spiritual power here. But for a moment, Zhu Yun frowned. Something is very wrong. Why hasn't the thunder struck down yet? He subconsciously used the shattering void spirit eyes technique to look at the sky, and saw an incredible scene. The whole world seems to have been disconnected. The sky and the earth were divided into two pieces. Those thunders had already struck down, but they didn't know where they hit. Moreover, the thunder clouds dissipated instantly just as they appeared. There is light all around again. Ha ha ha. Crazy laughter came, and Zhu Yun looked at Zhu Feng again. I saw that his crazy face was full of excitement. He even smiled so much that his eyes revealed a strange red glow. Fire Phoenix. Zhu Yun snorted coldly in his heart, since the heaven-gathering thunder talisman cannot fall from the sky, then there is this Fire Phoenix talisman. Although these two kinds of talismans are both extremely powerful talismans, they are still different. The thunder spirit power in the heaven-gathering thunder talisman is used to induce thunder. The Fire Phoenix talisman directly transforms into a Fire Phoenix to attack. After several talismans were thrown out, several Fire Phoenixes appeared in the blink of an eye. They stretched their wings and rushed towards Zhu Yun. Do you think I can only disconnect in parallel? Zhu Feng had experienced it once, and it was no longer difficult the second time. He only had to move his mind, and the Fire Phoenix passed in front of him, passed out from behind, and finally fell straight on the ground, knocking out several big craters. It's as if Zhu Feng is in another dimension. It seems that we can't kill this kid in the demon refining tower. We have to find a way to force him out of the demon refining tower. Thinking of this, Zuyun no longer wanted to fight. He made a decisive decision and flew towards the distance. I can't help him, but Zhu Feng can use that coercion to push him down at any time. Want to run away? Do you think I can come to the demon refining tower whenever I want and leave whenever I want? Zhu Feng also didn't expect that Zuyun would leave as soon as he said so simply that he couldn't help but become extremely anxious and hurriedly chased after Zuyun. But how could he catch up with Zuyun's speed during the foundation building stage? But in the blink of an eye, Zuyun was already half a mile away from him. Wait a minute, the space fault can make Zuyun's attack fail, so what if I trap him in the space fault? Thinking of this, Zhu Feng did not hesitate to control the demon refining tower to isolate the space around him. And Zuyun also ran into a transparent barrier. What's going on? Is there a formation? Zuyun was horrified, not knowing what had happened. He didn't feel there was a formation here at all. And after a few breaths, Zhu Feng flew over with a wild smile. Zuyun, you can't run away now, can you? Let you taste the power of my demon refining tower. Having said that, the familiar coercion suddenly appeared in the space where Zuyun was. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 402. Zhu Feng's speed of controlling the pressure was not fast, and he had already consumed most of his mind to trap Zuyun in the space fault. And this space was not small, so Zuyun could take a breath for a while. But obviously, this was only a temporary opportunity. As long as Zhu Feng continued to shrink the space and made him unable to escape, his realm would be suppressed. Zuyun was anxious. He used the breaking void spirit eye technique to clearly see a space fault. And Zhu Feng also found the problem and had controlled the space to shrink slowly. Due to the realm, the speed of space shrinking was not fast, but every point of shrinkage was a point more crisis for Zuyun. What should I do? Zuyun knew that it was useless to be anxious. Facing the problem, only calmness could effectively deal with it. The top of the fault had shrunk to his head, slowly pressing him down from the air, and Zuyun fell directly to the ground. Stepping on the solid ground, Zuyun had an idea and thought of the earth escape technique. As soon as he thought of it, he immediately drilled into the soil. But the next moment, he came out of the soil again with a dusty face. There is also a fault below. He spitted and looked at Zhu Feng, who was smiling particularly brightly. He thought that he couldn't escape even with the earth escape technique, otherwise, the thunder escape technique? Zuyun knew that there was nothing to hesitate about. Of all the escape techniques he had mastered, only the earth escape technique and the thunder escape technique could be used. Of course, the gold escape technique could also be used, but the problem was that even if he turned into a metal spirit body, he couldn't fly out of the fault. On the contrary, the thunder escape technique. He looked at Zhu Feng again and saw that he was approaching. Obviously, the space barrier was not far away from him. Then, he would not escape into the fault. Thinking of this, Zuyun used the thunder escape technique without hesitation. Zhu Feng only saw a flash of lightning, and Zuyun disappeared without a trace on the spot. Where is he? Zhu Feng was shocked. He had never seen anyone so fast. Maybe he could do it in the nascent soul stage, but Zuyun was only in the core formation stage. But soon, the demon refining tower fed back information that Zuyun was 200 steps away. Can he escape from the space fault? Zhu Feng thought to himself that it was not good. He reacted very quickly and knew that if Zuyun had this kind of escape technique, he would never be able to trap him. But if he could not kill Zuyun here, it would be even more difficult to deal with him in the future. Although Zhu Feng kept scolding Zuyun for being a waste, he knew that this was just his obsession. No one knew better than him how fast Zuyun's cultivation speed was. He did not chase him. Before he was completely sure, he would not go up to die, so as to prevent Zuyun from jumping off the wall and fighting desperately. The space fault had lost its effect on him, and he had also lost the absolute means of suppression. It seems that we can only let him run away today. However, he must go to Peeper Realm, so why don't I go to Peeper Realm first and wait for him there? Zhu Feng made a decision immediately, sensing Zhu Yun passing through the light gate and quickly leaving the demon refining tower. He didn't dare to go out. If he stayed outside the tower, he would definitely die. Zhu Yun wanted to kill him. He would leave only after Zhu Yun was far away from here. So, Zhu Feng rushed all the way back to the 9th floor and soaked the whole person in the blood pool. These bloods that were originally used to sacrifice the demon refining tower to gain control, but under Zhu Feng's magic, slowly flowed into Zhu Feng's body. However, I don't know how long it will take to absorb all the blood. Outside the tower, Zhu Yun stood in the swamp, looking at the demon refining tower of more than 10 feet with an inexplicable look. Under the breaking void spirit eye technique, the meticulously carved tower body came into view. Guard here? Zhu Feng is so cunning. As long as I'm here, he won't come out. But if I don't leave, my cultivation will be delayed. At this moment, I can only set up the formation here. Soon, Zhu Yun thought of a way to deal with it. When he was on the way to the 1st floor, he saw mummies everywhere. Among them, many monsters were ones he had seen before. This means that Zhu Feng absorbed even the monsters in the monster refining tower in order to practice. Combined with the fact that he absorbed the disciples of Wanjian Mountain in name at that time, it was even more known that Zhu Feng's mind was extremely vicious. Aren't you lucky? Let me see if you can leave here safely. Zhu Yun knew that he couldn't stay here for long, so he simply took out all the spirit stones. He first used 81 spirit stones to lay the 9 transformations 9 yang formation. Then, he laid out the self-destruction formation on the root out of the formation. Finally, he used an extremely large spirit-inducing formation to connect all the self-destruction formations. Whether Zhu Feng forcibly breaks the formation or wants to leave, he will definitely trigger the self-destruction formation. Humph, I don't believe that you, a foundation building period, can get out of so many self-destruction formations. After doing all this, a long time has passed. Zhu Yun confirmed it several times before planning to leave. Just after leaving the 9 transformations and 9 suns formation, a sound of fighting came into his ears. He looked in the direction of the sound and saw several magic wheels of different sizes colliding with more than a dozen sword lights. The 3 people from the magic wheel sect and the people from Wanjian Mountain are fighting. Zhu Yun didn't want to leave the meeting. No matter how the 2 sides fought, it had nothing to do with him. What he wants to do now is to hunt the monster beasts that escaped from the demon refining tower. The purpose is to obtain the demon pill and see if it is useful for the recovery of the golden dragon. Unexpectedly, these 2 groups of people moved towards the formation while fighting, which immediately made Zhu Yun frown. The 9 turns and 9 suns formation at this time is different from usual. He spent a lot of effort to set up countless self-destruction formations in the formation, just to trap Zhu Feng. If they trigger it unintentionally, that would be very bad. So, Zhu Yun took out the black sword and planned to drive Xianxia and others away. Who would have thought? As soon as the black sword came out, Xianxia immediately discovered Zhu Yun, immediately put aside the fighting magic wheel, and flew towards Zhu Yun quickly. Zhu Yun's pupils shrank. At this time, he dared to fight Xianxia. But under his feet was the 9 turns and 9 suns formation. Between the lightning and flint, Zhu Yun took out several earthen wall talismans. The earth wall appeared out of thin air and blocked Xianxia's sword move, but Zhu Yun's figure got close to Xianxia. Thunder escape technique. Get away! Zhu Yun shouted angrily and slashed towards Xianxia with one sword. Xianxia was caught off guard. He never imagined that Zhu Yun would not dare to take his sword moves from so far away, but he would still fight with him hand to hand. Could it be that he dares to fight with sword cultivators like us because he has the sword in his hand? Xianxia was a little slow, but he had experienced countless battles, large and small, over the past hundreds of years. Facing the sharp edge of the black sword, he leaned back, and the black sword swept along the tip of his nose. The cold light on the black sword was threatening, but it did not affect Xianxia. He even backhanded the sword and slashed towards Zhu Yun's waist. "Boy, let me show you how powerful my Wanjianshan swordsmanship is." Xianxia shouted loudly, and stabbed Zhu Yun's ribs with the magic sword in his hand at an extremely tricky angle. There is no way to avoid it. An evil smile appeared on Xianxia's lips. If this sword can kill Zhu Yun, no, just wound it, then he can take back the black sword. This is the ancestor's natal magic weapon. A greedy look flashed in his eyes, but what was reflected in his eyes was an imperceptible electric light. It was Zhu Yun who used the thunder escape technique again. Zhu Yun didn't want to fight with Xianxia at all, he just wanted to lure these people away from here. But greed has arisen. How can Xianxia be willing to let Zhu Yun leave? When he turned around and rushed towards Zhu Yun, he shouted loudly, "Jianzhen, kill this kid first." All the sword cultivators put aside their opponents and had a tacit understanding for many years, allowing them to quickly form a sword formation and attack Zhu Yun. "Fellow Daoist Chen, be careful." At this time, the demonic will immediately came to help. With a wave of his hands, he controlled the huge hollow magic wheel and threw it towards the center of the sword array. Zhu Yun was secretly puzzled. Why did the demonic will want to save me if he didn't take the opportunity to attack a few sword cultivators? Not only that, when the golden will and yin will saw that the demonic will was moving, they also launched several black wheels and threw them at the sword formation formed by a group of sword cultivators, trying to get Zhu Yun out of trouble. These sword cultivators were very fast, and when Xianxia gave the order, they had already trapped Zhu Yun in the formation. But neither the 3 people from the Magic Wheel sect nor the more than 10 people from Wanjian Mountain expected Zhu Yun to be faster. Boom! As the hollow magic wheel blasted into the sword array and exploded, the golden wheel and the yin wheel followed closely behind. Zhu Yun, on the other hand, took advantage of this moment to escape again. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 403. If an ordinary person attacks Wanjian Mountain sword formation, it is definitely impossible to achieve such an effect. But these people from the Molun sect are all veterans of the strong pill stage who have experienced hundreds of battles. Not to mention, they attacked Haori sect together with Wanjian Mountain, so they were extremely familiar with Wanjian Mountain. The strength of the demonic heavenly will has reached its peak in the late stage of pill formation. When Xianxia has not entered the sword formation, those swordsmen who are not as high as the middle stage of pill formation, no matter how stable the sword formation is, there will inevitably be a crack, which will make the other 2 the magic will has an opportunity to take advantage of. The sword cultivators had to concentrate on dealing with it. It wasn't until Xianxia also entered the formation that he realized that Zhu Yun was gone. "What about the boy?" Xianxia screamed, only to find that Zhu Yun was nowhere to be found. It is obviously not a good time to release spiritual consciousness to search now. Even as he screamed, the second attack from the 3 demon sky wheels came again. "Break it for me." Xianxia concentrated his mind and struck out with one sword. The huge sword energy immediately cut the hollow giant wheel in half, but he also consumed a lot of spiritual power. Seeing the other 2's magic wheels attacking again, the rest of the sword formation immediately swam over and took the magic wheels down. Originally, they had a slight upper hand, but because Xianxia wanted to intercept and kill Zhu Yun, Mo Tianlun, and the other 3 found an opportunity. "Second brother, how about killing these 3 people first and then looking for that kid?" At this time, Jian 15 loudly suggested, but Jian Er was helpless and flew himself to the position of the main attack force, leading a group of sword cultivators to attack the demonic wheel. He, then fellow Daoist Chen has gone somewhere, we should retreat too. The demonic heavenly wheel laughed sinisterly, threw another hollow giant wheel, turned around with the golden wheel and yin wheel and ran away. Woa! Jian Er was so angry that he screamed and wanted to tear the demonic wheel in half. The two of them each knew each other's abilities, and Jian Er even knew that if Mo Tianlun wanted to run away, it would be impossible for him to catch up in a short while. And even if he can catch up, what about the rest of the mid-stage pill formation? Sword cultivators are powerful in combat, but that doesn't mean they have more spiritual power. On the contrary, sword cultivators have less spiritual power. But the magic sky wheel has exactly this plan. Second brother, these three remnants of the demonic wheel sect are insidious and cunning, why don't we use the flying sword formation? Flying sword formation, as the name suggests, uses flying swords. Their spiritual swords can naturally fly under control. But flying the sword out means that they will have no sword in their hands for a short period of time. Now, Zuyun is nowhere to be found. If he comes with a sneak attack, their sword array will probably collapse in one blow, or even cause more damage. Jian Er calmed down, Zuyun's black sword was of course important. But if they don't have swords and Zuyun comes back to fight, his life may be at risk. If my life is gone, what's the use of that sword? No. Jian Er's eyes flashed with light, and at the same time he had a better idea in his mind, but he was afraid that Zuyun would hear it, so he didn't say anything. Let's catch up first and then talk. Jian Er vaguely felt that since Zuyun wanted to attack him at that time, he would definitely hide in the dark and look for opportunities. Instead of taking the initiative to find him, it is better to lure Zuyun out. All he needs to do is show his exhaustion, and Zuyun will definitely be able to show his body. When the time comes, he will strike with all his strength, and even if he is injured, he will take down the black sword. Thinking of this, Jian Er led the crowd to chase the three people from the demonic wheel sect. And just as he guessed, Zuyun did follow him. At that time, in the sword formation, he quickly escaped to the ground with the explosion of magic wheels, and then used the earth escape technique to follow him underground. However, he was not here to sneak attack Jian Er, but to ensure that these people would stay away from here. What he didn't even expect was that the demonic wheel would run away at the first opportunity, which was even more in line with his wishes. People like Wang Jianshan are so brainless. Zuyun was secretly amused. Unless these people stopped, there was no way he would take action. A few hours later, they had flown back to their original location in Wanjian Mountain. The three people from the Magic Wheel sect did not stop at all, but suddenly changed direction and flew towards the Zhuhao mountain range. The time, place, and people were all right, so Mo Tianlun wanted to take people to the Zhuhao mountains. They were familiar there. Unexpectedly, after flying hundreds of miles, the demonic wheel saw a one-armed monk flying directly in front of him. And behind him, there is a large area of foundation building period. During these foundation building stages, there are flying carpet-shaped magic weapons stepping on them. Zhaofu sect. Mo Tianlun's pupils shrank. He didn't expect to meet someone from the Zhaofu sect here. That hand, could it be paying a chapter? Jinlun suddenly remembered what Zuyun had said, and he cut off one of Fu Zhang's hands. Yinlun said solemnly, it must be his. The Zhaofu sect only has one person who is at the peak of the late stage of Dan formation. Who else is there besides him? If the three of them continue to fly over, they will definitely meet Fu Zhang head-on. If there were no Jian Er and others chasing behind them, they wouldn't be afraid. But the problem is far from that simple. Zhaofu sect is still a subsidiary sect of Wanjian Mountain. Sect Master, take a detour. Jinlun just said something, but before getting a response from Mo Tianlun, he didn't expect that Fu Zhang would suddenly take action. I saw him waving his one arm, and all the foundation building stages took out the talismans from their arms and threw them towards them. Halfway through, the talisman was reduced to ashes, and a bolt of lightning flashed out. Countless lightning bolts shot up into the sky, and in a flash, the sky was filled with dark thunderclouds and rumbled. The Zhaofu sect actually has such a talisman. More than 100 talismans were used at the same time, and this kind of power was much stronger than Zhu Yun's use of the Zhu Tian Lei Fu. It was also because these foundation building realms were relatively weak. Although they could use intermediate talismans such as the Zhu Tian Lei Fu, they could only use 3 or 5 at a time. But despite this kind of momentum was enough to scare them. Boom! The sky was full of lightning bolts, which fell from the sky and quickly hit the 3 people of the demon wheel, completely engulfing them. Ha ha ha! The remnants of the demon wheel sect? Let's try our Zhaofu sect's new talisman on you first. The sharp laughter resounded through the sky, even overwhelming the thunder, and was heard by Xianxia and others. A group of sword cultivators looked strange. They had seen that lightning bolt before. But it looked like the power was very different. When Zhu Yun took the black sword away earlier, they wanted to chase him. But Zhu Yun stopped them with a heavenly thunder talisman. Although there was only one, anyone could feel the terrifying power, which was enough to destroy them. And seeing the thunder array at this time, they naturally did not dare to move forward. Unexpectedly, this heavenly thunder was not as good as Zhu Yun's. Until the lightning dissipated, Fu Yizhang's laughter stopped abruptly. And his expression was completely frozen. The 3 people from the demon wheel sect looked very embarrassed. But what injuries did they suffer? When they were hit by the thunder, they might have been a little scared. In addition, they also felt a little numb and itchy. Mo Tianlun guessed that it should be the heavenly thunder that slightly restrained the demonic spirit power in their demon cultivators. But that's all. Fu Yizhang, what are you doing? At this time, Jian voice came, and Fu Yizhang realized that behind these 3 people, there were more than a dozen Wanjianshan sword cultivators. A gleam of light flashed in his eyes. His information had always been that there were only 3 Jindan stage cultivators guarding Wanjian Mountain, and he didn't know that Wanjian Mountain had already been in pieces under the beast tide, and the 20 Jindan stage cultivators were divided into 2 factions. The purpose of bringing so many foundation building cultivators there was to surprise attack Wanjian Mountain. In his opinion, if 100 foundation building cultivators used hundreds of Jushin Lei Fu at the same time, not to mention blasting 3 Jindan stage cultivators into slag, they might even blast the gate of Wanjian Mountain into ashes. But now, this Jushin Lei Fu didn't even blast out anything from the 3 people of the demon wheel sect. This second elder, I am training with my disciples, and I happened to see you chasing 3 demon cultivators, so I came to help. Fu Yizhang said a lie that no one believed, and there was silence in the space. Only Zhu Yun, who was underground, was laughing so hard that he almost lost his breath. This Fu Yizhang must have never tried the Jushin Lei Fu they drew themselves. Besides me, who else can make the power of the talisman reach a higher level? He suspected that he had not chopped Fu Yizhang's hand, but his brain. In the demon refining tower, Zhu Feng slowly opened his eyes. Then, he jumped out of the pool and landed beside the black ball of the altar. I didn't expect that this blood could also be absorbed, and it also replaced all the original blood in my body. Not only that, I actually tempered my body. This demon refining tower is really useful. Hee, Zhu Yun, wait for me to practice here for a few more days. I'm afraid that if I stand there and let you chop me, you can't kill me. Zhu Feng was not too excited, he was very calm. The reason why he came out of the blood pool was that the power in his body had reached the saturation level, and the previous absorption of those monsters allowed him to break through to the middle stage of foundation building. What he needed now was consolidation. Zhu Feng was eager to break through the realm and improve his strength. But he also knew that each realm needed to be steady and step by step. And he planned to either absorb all the blood here, or cultivate to the Jindan stage. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 404. Fu Yazang, what kind of broken talisman did you throw? It's just for show, but it can't hurt anyone at all. Seeing that the three people from the Demon Wheel sect were almost unscathed, Xianxia's face was extremely gloomy. Without waiting for him to speak, he urged again, use your Fire Phoenix talisman to stop them. The impolite words made Fu Yazang, who was already unhappy, furious. But the power of the gathering heavenly thunder talisman was not obvious, and he lost the confidence to challenge Xianxia and others. In desperation, he let a group of foundation building period people fall to the ground, and he took out the Fire Phoenix talisman and smashed it at the Demon Wheel and others. You guys come up too. Xianxia immediately called on the others to rush up. And he stayed where he was, thinking about guarding against Zuyun. From beginning to end, his target was Zuyun. It's a pity that Zuyun has been underground and it's impossible for him to come out. In addition, he can take the opportunity to learn Fu Yazang's ability to use talismans. After all, he has also learned 5 advanced talismans. It is said that bystanders see more clearly. If you treat yourself as an outsider, you can see more clearly. Xianxia is missing from the sword formation, but Fu Yazang is added. Although the three people from Tianlun are attacked from both sides, they are able to deal with it with ease, which makes Zuyun feel very happy. Every time Fu Yazang uses a talisman, Zuyun has a realization. It turns out that talismans can be used in this way. Like me before, I usually just throw the talisman out and it's done. The most exquisite time was when I seriously injured the golden dragon. I used the earth wall talisman to form an earth prison, so that the golden dragon could not escape, and then used the black sword to attack. Among them, the most critical part is to use speed to buy time for my attack. But look at Fu Yazang. The first time he made a move, it looked similar to Zuyun's usual method. He threw a lot of talismans directly, as if he wanted to win by quantity. The Fire Phoenix talisman is also very fast. Even the three people of the demonic sky will have to be careful to deal with it, but as long as they concentrate, they can safely avoid it. That's the problem. Just when the three people wanted to hide, Fu Yazang would use the unearthed wall talisman at the critical moment to directly block their way. The talisman that Zuyun has always used for defense, but he didn't expect it to have such a wonderful use. This directly broadened Zuyun's horizons in using talismans. Not only that, many talismans that obviously have no offensive power have created unexpected effects when used by Fu Yazang. And the three people of the demonic sky will are also gradually losing the upper hand. This Fu Yazang is really as steady as an old dog, steady and steady, not anxious or impatient. Zuyun sighed in his heart, thinking that when he fought with him at that time, he thought he underestimated himself and thought he had a sure win. Today, when he saw it, he knew that Fu Yazang's character was like this. Yes, although he is also at the peak of the late Jindan stage, he has no other means except talismans. If someone gets close to him, he will be threatened. No wonder he rebelled against the Seven Stars sect, because the sword cultivators of Wanjian Mountain are restrained by him, and they have an absolute advantage in numbers. He is a wise man. As the battle became more intense, it became difficult for the three people of Tianlun to defend themselves. If Xianxia joins in, I am afraid that these three people will definitely die. Zuyun was watching very clearly, thinking that Xianxia could see it, so why didn't he take action? There must be something wrong with the abnormal situation. He chased all the way and finally got a chance to kill. If it were me, I would definitely use my ultimate move at the first time and kill as many as I could. There must be something wrong with the abnormal situation. Xianxia must have other plans. Is he afraid that someone will attack them again? Zuyun used the Pakuling Jingju and locked his eyes on Xianxia's face, trying to guess what he was thinking from the expression on his face. It doesn't matter if you don't look, but if you look carefully, you will find something. Xianxia is staring at the center of the battle, but his eyes are constantly turning, searching in all directions. He looks most at the back. Is he preventing me from attacking? Zuyun frowned slightly, not knowing why Xianxia had such an idea. But after a little hesitation, he understood. After the demon refining tower appeared in the water swamp, he stayed with the 3 people from the demon will sect when they appeared. Xianxia must think that he must be the backup of the 3 people from the demon will sect. It seems that Xianxia will not stop until he kills him. Zuyun thought for a moment and knew that if he went out, he would definitely order everyone to besiege him. Add another chapter, he can't guarantee whether he can survive. Unless the 3 people from the demon will sect come to rescue again. But it has never been Zuyun's habit to pin his hopes on others. In this case, don't show your head for the time being, see if you can find an opportunity to secretly hit him with a club, and try to kill Xianxia directly. Zuyun thought quickly in his mind. Xianxia was far away from him. No matter how fast he was, he couldn't kill him in one breath. No matter how exquisite the Wuji sword technique was, it was also limited by distance. After thinking about it, only the talisman could be used. The Firebird talisman made too much noise, so he could only use the Gathering Heavenly Thunder talisman. But the Gathering Heavenly Thunder talisman was not always accurate. Moreover, his Gathering Heavenly Thunder talisman was different from Fu Yazang's. If he missed the first strike, Xianxia would definitely find him nearby. With precautions, the success rate of sneak attacks would be in vain. Zuyun instantly set his sights on Fu Yazang, and immediately had a brilliant idea in his mind. Fish in troubled waters. One Fu Yazang, the water is not muddy enough. Then add the ordinary disciples he brought with him. Zuyun had a thought and summoned Sango directly from the pasture. He didn't want Sango to cause chaos. He needed Sango to go back and pass on the message. Sango was a spiritual beast, but his spiritual power was very weak, and those foundation building cultivators would never notice this place. Sango thought Zuyun asked him to come out to find someone, and before he could bark, Zuyun suddenly pinched his mouth. Woo woo woo. Zuyun shouted in a low voice, "Don't make a sound, listen to me." After seeing Sango nod, Zuyun let go of his mouth and said, after returning, "Tell Shizu Beast to be ready, and harass the group of foundation building cultivators after coming out." As he said that, he also pointed to the group of cultivators. Sango looked over and saw that they all looked up at the sky, with admiration in their eyes. They obviously felt that their sect leader Fu Yazang was showing great power and had the upper hand. Sango nodded again, and Zuyun gave a few more instructions before sending Sango back. The reason why he didn't summon the Red Candle Beast directly was that he was afraid that the overly powerful demonic energy would attract the attention of others. At that time, if he spoke again to arrange for the Red Candle Beast to do something, it would naturally reveal its body and fail to achieve the effect of confusing the situation. After watching for a while, Zuyun felt that the time had come, and he thought that Sango had understood his meaning, so he conveyed it all to the Red Candle Beast. He then thought about it, and the demonic power in front of him flowed, and the Red Candle Beast appeared out of thin air. Roar! As soon as the Red Candle Beast appeared, it roared wildly. Sango conveyed Zuyun's meaning word for word, and with Zhao Kamang's instructions on the side, he was very clear about his mission. Sure enough, everyone's attention was all on the Red Candle Beast. Even the Jindan stage people fighting in the sky were the same. But when he saw it again, it was just a demon beast comparable to the foundation building stage, so he withdrew his attention again. Especially Fu Yazang, a mere monster, he felt that his disciples in the foundation building stage were enough to deal with it. And Zuyun wanted this effect. The red candle beast was full of flames, and it ran towards the gathering place where the foundation building cultivators were. The speed was so fast that it was like a moving flame. The fire was so big that the trees it touched were immediately ignited with raging fire. Be careful, that monster looks very powerful. Hurry up, use talismans to stop him. Half of the people use earth armor talismans, and half of the people use firebird talismans. After a commotion, someone suddenly stood up to command. In an instant, countless talismans flew over, and lines of earth armor rose from the ground like ground spikes. But the red candle beast suddenly jumped up, and when it was in the air, it spewed out a flame. Oh no, he jumped so high. Hurry up, where are the people using the firebird talismans? They can only use intermediate talismans, and they only have intermediate talismans on them. The foundation building cultivators in charge of the attack immediately threw out the firebird talisman. But these firebird talismans could not hurt the red candle beast at all. First, they had the same properties. Second, the flames on the red candle beast were pure earth vein fire. How could the firebird talismans that were charged with mixed spiritual power deal with them? In fact, some weaker firebird talismans, after hitting the red candle beast, sank into the flames outside the red candle beast. You made a mistake, don't use the firebird talisman. Seeing this, all the cultivators panicked. Some wanted to use water talismans, but the intermediate water talismans could only heal injuries. If they were used, would they be effective? Use the thunder talisman, use the thunder talisman. Hurry up, everyone take out the thunder talisman. Suddenly, someone suddenly realized and shouted. In the critical situation, they quickly pinched out the gathering heaven thunder talisman and threw it out. In the sky, Xianxia's attention was also completely attracted, and this scene also fell into his hands. He frowned slightly, always feeling that something was wrong, but he couldn't remember where it was. Just as the sky suddenly became gloomy and thunderclouds were attracted by more than 100 Jushin Leifu, Zuyun also secretly crushed a Jushin Leifu. The target of the attack was Xianxia in the air. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 405. The ordinary heaven gathering thunder talisman should be used faster. The endless thunder snake fell and hit the red candle beast. But as soon as the red candle beast landed, it suddenly jumped back. Zuyun asked Sangu to explain that his purpose of coming out was never to kill these foundation building stages. So he doesn't have to go out of his way to hurt people, he just needs to let them activate the heaven gathering thunder talisman. In the gloomy sky, when the purple light burst out, Zuyun's thunder suddenly fell towards Xianxia. By the time Xianxia reacted, it was already too late to dodge. The huge aura of thunder made Xianxia feel that the hundreds of thunder snakes in front of him were nothing more than that. Boom! In desperation, Xianxia simply blocked the thunder with his sword, and the terrifying force directly smashed Xianxia and his sword down. Immediately, the people in the Danja stage who were fighting stood stunned on the spot. Whether it's the people from Wanjian Mountain or the 3 people from the demonic Lun. They were floating in the air in a daze, and they couldn't figure out why the previously harmless sky thunder not only attacked Xianxia this time, but also hit him in the head. Furthermore, Xianxia's body was trembling with thunder and power, causing him to spit out blood. As he fell, it seemed like a rain of blood began to fall. That boy is here. At this time, Fu Zhangjiang suddenly shouted in shock and quickly left the battle circle. He had one arm cut off by Zuyun, knowing very well Zuyun's strength. Now he is hiding it and I am revealing it. If he wants to take action against me, I am afraid that even I will not end well. At the same time, everyone in Wanjian Mountain also quickly chased Xianxia. Although Xianxia would not fall to death, he would definitely suffer a lot of trauma as he was lying head down and feet in the air. Only the three of them, Mo Tianlun, looked at each other, and then he softly uttered a sentence, "It's fellow Daoist Chen." Jinlun said, "Sect Master, then we." Fleeing from that place to here, fellow Daoist Chen followed him all the way, which shows that he is also a man of temperament. We just took this opportunity to join forces with him and kill everyone in Wanjian Mountain. Magic Will made a decision quickly. A strange smile appeared on the corner of Yinlun's mouth and said, "What the sect master said is exactly what I want." That fellow Daoist Chen caught Jian Er by surprise and seriously injured Jian Er, and then Fu Zhang ran away. "I'm afraid it's them from Wanjian Mountain, not us anymore, opponent." After saying that, the Yin Will took the lead in condensing several gray-white magic wheels and smashed them towards the people of Wanjian Mountain who were leaving. Jinlun followed closely, but Mo Shenlun did not take action. His eyes were fixed on Fu Zhangji. During the battle, he knew Fu Zhangzhang's strength. If he suddenly uses some powerful talisman while escaping, someone will always need to deal with it. Careful! Jian Shishi shouted in surprise, stopped immediately, raised his sword and slashed at the magic wheel that flew first. Boom! There was a loud noise, and several gray-white magic wheels were chopped off instantly. The sound of the explosion lifted him out with a surge of spiritual power. And the magic wheel of the golden wheel came immediately, caught up with him, and blasted him into the distance. 15. Several more sword cultivators shouted loudly, and at the same time two people flew towards Jian 15. "Yin Chakra, come again. The fewer people there are, the better our chances of winning." As Jinlun spoke, he waved his hand and squeezed the magic formula to condense the magic wheel again. The Yin Chakra responded in a deep voice, and the hands also kept moving. "Take advantage of his illness to kill him." The magic wheels of the two people were smashing in that direction as if they were desperate for their lives. In desperation, among the sword cultivators, only Jian 11 went over to hug the falling Jian Er, while the others formed a sword formation to deal with it. As for why Jian Er was injured by the Jushin Lei talisman, they did not expect it to be Zuyun. 11. Let everyone, run, fast, run. Jian Chaiwu endured the pain caused by the thunder spirit force raging in his body, and reminded him with difficulty. "Run? Why did you run?" Jian Shi asked anxiously, but did not give Jian Er a chance to explain, saying, "Second brother, it's better to heal your injury first, and then settle the debt with Fu Zhang." When he first hugged him, Jian Shi also glanced at Fu Zhangji and found that he was escaping on the flying carpet magic weapon. He thought that this was Fu Zhangji's sneak attack. The Zaofu sect was dissatisfied with Wanjianshan, and they, the elders, had actually known it for a long time. It's just that the Zaofu sect only pays one chapter for the Dan formation period, so they don't take it seriously at all. Who would have thought that Fu Zhangjiang would dare to take action at this time? "It's not him, run, run." In desperation, Jian Er yelled with all his strength. Along with the spitting blood, his strength was gradually dissipating. Not him. Jian Shi's eyes darkened, and several explosions came from behind him. He quickly looked back, only to see that his companions were already at a disadvantage. Moreover, the demonic wheel has not yet taken action. Now, he understood why Jian Er asked them to run. "Retreat," my second brother said to retreat, quickly. After Jian 11 shouted loudly, he held Jian Er and flew towards the distance, directly joining the three of Jian 15. The remaining few people saw this, although they didn't know why. They were very disciplined, and when they saw Jian Er being taken away, they followed without hesitation after cutting off the magic wheel in front of them. He was extremely decisive in breaking away from the battle situation. Although Wang Jianshan was criticized by the entire Yaezhu for being arrogant, countless people admired him for his ability to enforce orders and prohibitions. "Sect Master, Do you want to pursue me? Jinlun immediately asked Mo Tianlun. Mo Tianlun shook his head, pointed downwards, and said, fellow Daoist Chen has not shown up yet. In my opinion, it is better to stay for now. It can be seen that the two people had unwilling looks on their faces, so they said seriously, the three of us must not be separated. If we are separated, we will be easily defeated by each one. The two of them were shocked and suddenly woke up. The reason why the people from Wanjian Mountain and Fuzhangji fled here was not because of how fierce their attack was. But he is afraid of the strength of the demonic heavenly wheel. Yes, sect master. The two of them said in unison, withdrew their spiritual power and looked in the direction of the demon wheel's finger. I saw a group of monks in the foundation building stage, waiting in full formation. The battle in the sky is not something they can participate in. On the contrary, the red candle beast might threaten their existence. It's just that the red candle beast was slowly walking in the direction of Zuyun. At this time, Zuyun, after taking the red candle beast away from him, used the wood escape technique to hide in a big tree. The red candle beast was nowhere to be found, and it simply stayed where he was when he came out of the pasture. And at this time, putting away the demon fire will not burn the trees around him. How did the monster appear? Mo Tianlun frowned and said to himself. Indeed, the three of them only saw Jushin Lei talisman, but not Zuyun. Sect master, you don't even know. How do we know? If it hadn't released the demonic fire at that time, I wouldn't have noticed it. Jinlun smiled bitterly. Yinlun thought for a moment and said, could it be fellow Daoist Chen's pet beast? Let's go down and take a look before we talk. The Zaofa sect's foundation building stages did not pose any threat to them, and they even did not bother to kill these foundation building stages, so as not to spread the news and make people laugh at their magic wheel sect for bullying their juniors. But when they fell, the stunned juniors suddenly woke up and fled in all directions. Even if the demonic wheel ignored them, the spiritual power flowing around them made them feel suffocated. It's really ironic to say that Fu Zhangjiang didn't come to save the junior in their sect. Jinlun raised his head and looked in the direction where Fu Zhang had escaped, but he had already disappeared. Although they are demons, their disciples have always adhered to the principle of never abandoning or giving up. It's not like Wanjian Mountain, which ignores its disciples. Zuyun had a panoramic view of all this, and was filled with emotion in his heart. Are all immortal sects in the world like this? Sighing, he flashed out of the tree while Mo Tianlun and others were not paying attention. The red candle beast sensed it immediately and roared in a low voice. This roar made the three of them look over here, just in time to watch Zuyun pat the red candle beast a few times, and then put him away. Ha ha ha, fellow Daoist Chen, I have to thank you again this time. Mo Tianlun smiled heartily and strode towards Zuyun. Zuyun nodded slightly and said, thanks to my senior for helping me at that time, otherwise I would most likely die. You're so polite, fellow Daoist Chen. If you hadn't held the Demon King back then, I'm afraid the three of us would have become the Demon King's prey. We, the demonic wheel sect, have always had a clear distinction between grudges and grievances. It's just that we couldn't do much to help at that time. N.A. As he said that, Mo Tianlun looked guilty. Zuyun knew that he was talking about when the golden dragon appeared and they fled far away. But they did not flee directly at that time, but stayed and watched from a distance, which is enough to show that they did a good job. Zuyun didn't care and said with a smile, in that case, the three seniors came up to die. Since you and I both escaped alive, it seems it's time to go our separate ways. Mo Tianlun was stunned for a moment, then narrowed his eyes and said seriously, fellow Daoist Chen, won't you come with me? Wang Jianshan is like a bereaved dog at this time, and Jian Er is seriously injured. There are 4 of you and I, we can definitely defeat him, kill them all. Zuyun shook his head and said, Demon Sect Master, I don't have much grudge against Wang Jianshan. In comparison, I have more important things to do. Fellow deist Chen, Jin Lun also said at this time, treacherous people like Wang Jianshan have almost destroyed the entire Yaezhu. If we don't take this opportunity to destroy them, I'm afraid they will resurgence, and then. Jin Lun is right, Yin Lun also said, fellow deist Chen, how about this, after we save Yaezhu from dire straits, we can go together to help you with your business. At that time, the three of us will definitely let you do whatever you want. You command. When these words came out, Mo Tianlun also nodded frequently, indicating that there was absolutely nothing wrong with what Yin Lun said. But Zhu Yun still shook his head, but this time he revealed a little more information. You think that killing the people in Wanji Unshan is to save Yaezhu, but I think that what I want to do is to save the entire Yaezhu. As soon as these words came out, the three of them were stunned on the spot. Zhu Yun glanced at their faces one after another, sighed, and said, countless monsters have been wreaking havoc in Yaezhu. You don't know much about them. Those monsters came all the way from Chuzhu, maybe even the entire North Yaezhu, has completely fallen. What? The three of them were extremely shocked by Zhu Yun's words. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 406. Seeing that these three people seemed to be a little unconvinced, Zhu Yun said helplessly, when I was in Chuzhu, I heard about the beast tide, so I came back to Yaezhu. After staying in a valley for a while, we are facing a tide of beasts. That tide of beasts is coming from the west. Is this beast tide so big? Mo Tianlun was surprised. If what Zhu Yun said is true, if the beast tide goes to South Yaezhu, it will definitely cross the Zhuhao Mountains. By then, their surviving juniors will definitely not be able to escape the word of death. Yes, it's that big, Zhu Yun nodded and said, didn't you see that everyone in Wanjian Mountain has dispersed? I just don't know that there were originally 20 pill-forming stages, but now there are only a dozen or so left. Was it swallowed by the beast tide, or escaped and never came back? The magic wheel suddenly fell silent. After a long while, he looked directly into Zhu Yun's eyes. Fellow deist Chen, you are going to kill the monster, then the three of me will go with you. Zhu Yun was also surprised when he heard this. Logically speaking, this is completely thankless. They can hide in one place and concentrate on cultivation without asking anything about Yaezhu. They could even escape safely when the beasts came, so why did they have to get involved? But seeing the determination in Mo Tianlun's eyes, Zhu Yun simply nodded and said, yes, but the three seniors need to advance and retreat together with me. That's natural. The three people from the demonic wheel said in unison. Okay, Zhu Yun clapped his palms and said, however, I still need to collect demon pills. I don't want anything else, just demon pills. Jinlun grinned and said, fellow deist Chen, we just want to take the lives of the monsters. That's right, I just happened to have some insights recently. If I kill the monsters, I might be able to break through. We're not good at refining weapons either, so it's useless to ask for those monster materials. Yin Chakra also followed suit. After hearing this, Zhu Yun felt a little happy. The reason why he wanted the demon pill was actually to prepare it for the golden dragon. As long as Jin Jiao's strength recovers faster, his safety will be more guaranteed. Only then did Mo Tianlun look at Zhu Yun with a smile and said, fellow deist Chen, you are also in the elixir formation stage. Calling me senior would be too much. I forgot to introduce you again. I am the master of Mo Lun sect, Mo Tianlun Heaven Wheel. Ha ha ha, Zhu Yun also laughed. He felt that although Mo Tianlun was the master of the demonic way, to be honest, he didn't see any pretense. Although he guessed that the three of them were headed by Mo Tianlun, he did not guess that it is the identity of the sect leader. Now that he can tell the truth about his identity, it is obviously a recognition of him. I didn't expect that I would make friends with two major demon sects in Yeazhu. It was really interesting. However, Zuyun did not intend to reveal his real name. In that case, let's guard the Juhao Mountains to prevent those monsters from rushing through South Yeazhu. The three of them nodded repeatedly and planned to fly south with Zuyun. Soon, they saw the Zaofa sect. The people in the market outside the sect were withering away. Zuyun guessed that it must be related to Fu Zhangzhang's departure. By the way, I need to prepare something. Zuyun thought that Fu Zhangzhang had already left, and he could use some of the talisman materials in the sect for his own use. He didn't like Zhang Yi at all. As for ordinary disciples, he didn't even bother to kill them. To be honest, it was the grudge of Sun Suanhua's generation. Without Sun Suanhua opening his mouth, he would not take the initiative to take revenge. Of course, if Sun Suanhua told him, Zuyun would definitely not hold back. 4 pill-forming stage fell directly at the mountain gate, frightening all the chi-refining monks and servants to flee in haste. Those who had no time to escape fell to their knees and trembled. Zuyun and Mo Tianlun didn't even need to speak, Yanlun just spat out one word, "Get out." A group of minor cultivators fled one after another as if they were granted amnesty. Unexpectedly, Zuyun suddenly said, "Stop." Suddenly, a sense of panic filled the air. The minor cultivators started to fight, and even worse, they knelt down again. Fellow Daoist Chen. Mo Tianlun was surprised. He knew that Zuyun and the Zaofa sect must have a grudge. Otherwise, how could they cut off Fu Zhang's arm for no reason? Nothing, just want something. Zuyun smiled and waved his hand, saying, "Go and get all the materials for the intermediate talismans and high-level talismans, and then let you go." Everyone was relieved when they heard that they were not killed, and kept kowtowing to Zuyun to thank him, as if not killing them was a great kindness. This made Zuyun feel inexplicable again. During the chi refining period, he heard that everyone below the foundation was just ants. At the foundation building stage, I heard that all the people below the core are ants. So now that I am in the elixir formation stage, in the eyes of the Yuanying ancestor, am I just like an ant, no different from them? This is just the mortal world. What if you go to the spirit world? There is a higher level of realm. What about after ascension? Suddenly, Zuyun felt that the meaning of cultivating immortality without time seemed to be not as simple as it seemed. If you want not to become an ant in the eyes of others, do you have to keep practicing? So if you ascend to immortality, will you still be an ant? Above immortality, what else is there? Suddenly, Zuyun sighed again. Faintly, he realized something. But it can't be explained. Fellow Daoist Chen, what's wrong? Seeing that Zuyun suddenly acted like this again, Jinlun asked strangely. Fellow Daoist Chen looks young, but he has a lot on his mind. At such a young age, why do you have so many worries? It stands to reason that at his age, he has already reached the stage of forming pills, and he is also a rare genius in Yeazhu. But till now, they don't seem to know where fellow Daoist Chen comes from. No, I thought of something. Zuyun smiled and did not hide it. Instead, he pointed at the leaving minor cultivators and said, "Do you think there is any difference between us and them?" Yin Chakra was puzzled and said, "Why is there no difference? They are all ants, otherwise why would they be scared to death even if you say a word?" Zuyun looked at their backs and said, "But if a nascent soul ancestor is here, do you think, will it be us who kneels on the ground?" Before they could speak, Zuyun said again, "What about the divine transformation stage? What about the void refining stage? What about the integration stage? What about the Mahayana stage and the tribulation stage?" This made Yin Chan speechless when asked directly. Mo Tianlun was also a little surprised and said, Fellow Daoist Chen, you are thinking too far term. When we practice, we say we are pursuing immortality, but if we don't become immortals, how can we live forever? So, if we think more carefully, we can live one more year. Everything is earned. You are quite reasonable, Zuyun looked over and said with a smile, Master Tianlun, if mortals live to 100 years and live an ordinary life, will they make a profit? These words directly stopped the demonic wheel. Jinlun frowned and said, Fellow Daoist Chen, do you mean that monks are no different from ordinary people? Zuyun shook his head and said, there are still some differences, but we reach the same goal by different paths before we live forever. What we want is immortality. How to say? Motion reincarnated and asked. Mortal people need to live, and they have to work since they were born. There are farmers who face the lowest and their backs to the sky, there are hunters who hunt at sunrise and return at sunset. There are also fishermen who go to sea for several days and have a full load in one day. What they end up doing, just survive. The three people who spoke these words were thoughtful. Zuyun added, if we monks want to live longer, in addition to practicing, we also need to avoid being killed. Cultivation is to become stronger. When encountering a crisis, we can escape with our lives and have convenience. It's about increasing longevity. No matter what it is, it's all about living. I think it's just a word that the monks use to comfort themselves. For a moment, there was silence all around. Zuyun's words are thought-provoking. They are all in the realm of forming the core, and they have lived for at least hundreds of years. These words were extremely simple, but Zuyun compared them with extremely straightforward words from another angle. Fellow Daoist Chen, what you said seems to make sense. After a while, Mo Tianlun raised his head and said, with a slightly confused look on his face. If he takes one further step, he will be able to conceive a baby and become the ancestor of the nascent soul. The longevity can directly exceed 1,000 years. And with this strength, he can look down on the entire Ya realm. But what if it's in the Peepa realm? There are also many people who are afraid of the middle, late and peak stages of nascent soul. Not to mention the great powers in the realms beyond the nascent soul stage. I always feel like something is wrong, but I don't know how to refute it. Jinlun sighed. Yin Chen also spoke, so, fellow Daoist Chen, tell me, what is the purpose of cultivating immortality? For what? Zuyun was also murmuring when someone suddenly asked him. Since he became an immortal, he has asked himself many times, but he has never asked himself why. I went to Lingjian sect with Zhang Tianyuan because I wanted to be able to fly with a sword like him. Now, he can stand in the void. In Lingjian sect, I want to find the injured Ergu. Now, he has properly arranged Ergu in Lingjian sect. Later, I wanted to find De Go and Chen Hua. Now that he has found it, the big dog has broken a forearm, and he still needs to find a way to help him recover. Chen Hua made his own choice and went to the Silver Sword sect. Right now, he was going to take 3 people from the Magic Wheel sect to hunt the monsters. Is it for the sake of all the people in the Ya realm? Or to restore the Golden Dragon Demon King for the Demon Pill? Or is it to practice the Wuji sword technique? Zuyun suddenly felt a little confused, but he was very determined to kill the monster. Besides, Menguia, Sun Suanhua, Sun Qiniang, and others. In addition, he agreed to Zhao Kamang to let him turn back into a human and extend the longevity of the 3 dogs. The prerequisite is that he needs to become a human before he can take the longevity pill refined from the elixir in the medicine garden. By the way, that guy from Li Mo couldn't find me, so he was probably in a hurry, right? Zuyun suddenly laughed out loud after thinking about the people involved with him one by one. He has already found the answer to why he wants to become an immortal. But at this moment, there was a sudden loud noise in the sky. Fire phoenixes filled the sky and covered the earth. The young monks and servants who had left not long before the fire phoenix had even landed on the ground, The high temperature had already turned them into human beings. No, I have to pay 1 chapter. The magic wheel screamed in surprise, and his hands immediately condensed the hollow magic wheel and rushed towards the fire phoenix. But Fu Zhangjiang was the first to make a sneak attack and had already prepared more than 100 fire phoenix talismans. At the same time, no one can bear it. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 407. It turned out that after Fu Zhang escaped all the way, he went around in a circle and planned to return to the Zhaofu sect. The attempt to sneak attack Wanjian Mountain had failed, and the remaining disciples had fled in all directions. He believed that these disciples would eventually return to the Zhaofu sect. Moreover, there was no conflict with Jian and others, so he could make further plans. But I never thought that I would see Zuyun and others here. After the old and new grudges came together, he decided to kill Zuyun and the others directly here. After brewing in the sky for a long time, all the fire phoenix talismans were sacrificed, trying to kill them all. As for those little monks who were affected for no reason, Fu Zhangji had never seen them as adults. Death means death. The most important thing in Yaezhu is people. The hollow magic wheel of the magic sky wheel was extremely huge, but under the extremely high temperature of countless fire phoenixes, it could not even hold a breath, but was instantly nirvana and dissipated in mid-air. The same is true for the golden and yin chakras. More than 100 fire phoenixes are like more than 100 Danja stagers striking at the same time. Fellow Daoist Chen, your realm is weak, you run away first. After his magic wheel was destroyed, Magic Sky Wheel roared angrily, but unexpectedly, the ground suddenly shook. Then, a series of earthen walls seemed to have sprung up from the ground, blocking them in front of them. Retreat first, there are too many fire phoenixes, and the earthen wall won't be able to stop them for long. Zuyun said loudly, after stepping out of a safe distance using the steps of the immortality secret. The three of them did not dare to neglect, and subconsciously followed Zuyun to retreat. In front of him, there was a loud bang, which was the sound made by the fire phoenix hitting the earth wall. Deafening. But just after using the talisman, he felt that these 4 people must die. He looked in disbelief and exclaimed, "How is this possible?" It turned out that the earth wall talisman was much stronger than he expected. As a well-known talisman master in the entire Yaezhu, Fu Zhang's attainments in talismans are unparalleled. Naturally, he knew how to draw the earth wall talisman, but how could the drawn earth wall talisman be able to block such a large-scale fire phoenix attack? It stands to reason that under normal circumstances, a fire phoenix can shatter an earth wall and still have residual fire rush through it. But just now he looked carefully for a long time and found that it would take 3 to 5 fire phoenixes to pass through the earth wall. No, it should be more accurate that after the earth wall is attacked, the maintenance time is shortened and it disperses on its own. He had no idea how powerful Zuyun's talisman was. This earthen wall. Even the golden dragon in its heyday can stop it for a moment. Fellow Daoist Chen, how come your talisman is so powerful? The 3 of them don't understand talismans, but they understand spiritual power. The oppressive feeling caused by the flaming phoenixes all over the sky made them almost feel that they would be seriously injured even if they didn't die. But at this time, not only was he standing here properly, but he was also able to say a few words. Zuyun did not respond directly, but held the talisman with both hands at the same time. A heaven-gathering thunder talisman and several earth wall talisman. Fellow Daoist Chen. The magic wheel is strange. It is much more flexible in the air than on the ground. Is he trying to counter-attack with these talismans? While he was stunned, Zuyun took action. He first used the heaven-gathering thunder talisman. Fu Zhangjiang quickly noticed the flash of lightning rising into the sky. This scene was so familiar to him that he couldn't help but feel his heart in his throat. Zuyun's heaven-gathering thunder talisman is countless times stronger than the one he drew. Moreover, Fu Zhangjiang also met Zhu Yun's experiment in person. Humph, you want to use this talisman to hurt me? Your talisman can't break through my mountain protecting formation at all. Fu Zhang's mind was like lightning, and he immediately made a decision in his heart. In a flash of lightning, his body immediately moved and rushed downwards. Firstly, you can avoid the attack of thunder, and secondly, you can use the mountain protection formation to trap these four people together in the formation. But he is fast, but Zhu Yun is even faster. As soon as Fu Zhang moved, Zhu Yun guessed what he was thinking and crushed an earthen wall talisman without hesitation. A wall of earth suddenly appeared in mid-air. This is. The three people from the magic wheel sect were extremely surprised, because under Zhu Yun's control, the earth wall turned out to be horizontal. It's not so much an earthen wall as it is a ceiling in mid-air. Fu Zhangjiang didn't make any reaction and just hit the wall. There was a muffled sound, and thunder followed closely, falling directly on Fu Zhang's body. Boom! The lightning instantly wrapped around Fu Zhang's body. Ah! Fu Zhangjiang screamed in agony. Jian Er, who was several times stronger than him, would be injured by the thunder, let alone a monk like him who was only skilled in talisman. Good opportunity, Tianlun sect master, hurt him quickly. Zhu Yun immediately shouted, and the magic wheel flew over without hesitation. I can only pay one chapter with one hand, but I am so seriously injured. If I don't beat the dog in the water right now, I'm sorry that I have been practicing for so many years. Die. The demonic wheel suddenly flew up, waving his hands, once again condensed a huge hollow wheel, and smashed it towards Fu Zhangjiang with all his strength. Damn it, you treacherous boy! Fu Zhangjiang yelled angrily, managed to form a talisman, and threw it in front of him, forming a wall of earth as well, intending to block the giant hollow wheel. Huh, you been fooled. Zhu Yun sneered, and the earth wall blocked Fu Zhang's body, making it impossible for him to see Zhu Yun and others. This is exactly what I wanted. Zhu Yun once again created a heaven-gathering thunder talisman, and with the momentum of the giant hollow wheel flying past, he perfectly covered the movement caused by the talisman. Boom! The sound of thunder falling was combined with the sound of the giant hollow wheel hitting the earth wall. By the time Fu Zhangji reacted, the thunder had already hit him. In an instant, the purple became more intense, and Fu Zhang's pain became even greater. Damn boy! Fu Zhang was shocked and angry, and his spiritual power was a little out of control, and most of him couldn't control it. In addition, he only has one hand left, so when he is passive, he is already at a disadvantage. Not to mention that he used the earth wall talisman and couldn't see what Zhu Yun did. Not only did the Jushin Thunder talisman hit Fu Zhang, but there were also some jumping electric rays that continuously impacted the earth wall talisman he had laid out. At this time, Zhu Yun also took out the black sword, stood up, and rushed towards Fu Zhangjiang. Fellow Daoist Chen. The three people from Mo Tianlun exclaimed in unison, wondering why Zhu Yun was still fighting in close combat when he could clearly use the talisman. You three, please wait for a moment. Chen will come as soon as he leaves. As soon as he finished speaking, Zhu Yun had already used the thunder escape technique. When his figure flashed, he was already not far from the earth wall. And this earth wall also shattered at this moment. Zhu Yun takes action instantly. The promise sword technique. With the sound of his roar, the incomparable power of chaos immediately surged out from the seed gap in his lower abdomen, and rushed into the black sword through Zhu Yun's palm. Zitsize. The black sword turned into a purple sword, and Zhu Yun stepped forward and stabbed without hesitation. But at this time, it took Fu Zhangjiang to realize that it was already too late to use the earth wall talisman. This flashing purple light seems to be more terrifying than the heaven-gathering thunder talisman. If you want me to die, it's not that simple. Fu Zhang reached out and touched his arms, trying to find a fire phoenix talisman. However, His hand was in vain. Because he had used up all the hundreds of Fire Phoenix talismans. Suddenly, his face turned extremely pale. He wanted to risk his life, but he felt that Zuyun was definitely not as ruthless as him. The idea was beautiful, but reality gave him a blow. It was no longer possible for Fu Zhang to use the Earth Wall talisman again. He saw a purple light quickly flashing in front of his eyes, and a sharp pain came from his lower abdomen. Endless regret filled his body as his consciousness disappeared. If you use the Earth Wall talisman, if you escape first, and then abandon your body, the golden elixir will escape. In the end, Fu Zhang's consciousness stayed at this moment. The power of thunder not only annihilated him, but also destroyed his Zifu. The leader of the Zhaofu sect, once the master of the Seven-Star sect, died. Seeing that his vitality had completely dissipated and his head was drooping, Zuyun took back his sword. Not far away, those fire phoenixes lost control and suddenly turned into balls of spiritual energy, fading away from the firelight and returning to the heaven and earth. Only then did Zuyun step forward, tear off his storage bag, glance at it casually, and couldn't help but feel happy. The storage bags are filled with materials for various talismans. There are even some high-level talismans, but they all have two attributes, water and wood. In addition, there were some transmission talismans and a kind of talisman that he had never seen before. Tracking charm. Zuyun thought that when he and Fu Zhang fought for the first time, he had a talisman chasing him hard, as if it was eating away at the bones. But when he took it out and looked at it, he immediately frowned. He didn't recognize this talisman, but he could more or less guess its function from the formation patterns. But he didn't recognize any of the runes. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 408. Zuyun's heart condensed slightly, and he exerted force between his fingers, and found that this talisman paper was also high-level talisman paper, and he felt even more strange. Would a high-level talisman have runes that he couldn't understand at all? Was he shallow, or was there a trick on this talisman? Thinking of this, Zuyun decided to use the Pakuling Qingju to take a look. If there was really a trick, he would be able to see it. There was no need to use any mysterious means for high-level talismans, right? But at this moment, three wind sounds came from behind him. Zuyun was suddenly startled and had an inexplicable idea in his mind. At this time, it was obviously not good to look at this talisman, so he simply stuffed the talisman into his arms. He didn't even need to look back to know that it was the three people from Mo Tianlun who came. Chen Daiyu is very tricky. I thought you were going to fight with Fu Yazang, but you killed him directly. As soon as Mo Tianlun came up, he offered a lot of good words. Zuyun laughed and said, Master Tianlun, even though Fu Yazang has made extraordinary achievements in the art of talismans, he also has weaknesses. As long as we use the strong to attack the weak, we can naturally kill him in one fell swoop. Jinlun agreed very much and said, fellow Daoist Chen is right. Moreover, fellow Daoist Chen has fought with the old dog Fu Yazang before, so he must know exactly what the other party has. Yinlun followed up immediately, old dog Fu specializes in one way, but he only knows one. On the contrary, fellow Daoist Chen has many methods, whether it is talismans or swords. With such strength, we can only sigh that we are inferior to him. Zuyun was speechless after listening to their flattery. He knew his own weight very well. And two of them were in the middle stage of Jindan, and one was at the peak of the late stage of Jindan. By the way, fellow Daoist Chen, at this time, Mo Tianlun pointed at Fu Yazang's storage bag and said, this old dog is quite rich. We heard about it when we were in the Zhuhao Mountains. Before he finished speaking, Zuyun's spirit was tense. From what he heard, was he going to share the spoils with him? It is true that Zuyun did not value these external things, but if Mo Tianlun made unreasonable demands, Zuyun would definitely refuse, and at worst, they would break up. Things can be divided, after all, they have also contributed a lot. But in the end, Fu Yazang was killed by himself. Just when he thought that Mo Tianlun had other ideas, the next words made Zhu Yun secretly think that he was judging others by his own standards. Mo Tianlun did not mention how to divide Fu Yazang's storage bag, but everything was considered for the next resistance to the beast tide. It is said that he drew a sound transmission jade talisman, which can be transferred into spiritual power and can transmit sound within 50 miles. Fellow Daoist Chen, have you found anything in this bag? Zhu Yun's cheeks were slightly hot, and he penetrated his spiritual consciousness into the storage bag again. Sure enough, several pieces of jade talismans mentioned by Mo Tianlun appeared in a corner. The so-called jade talisman is to cut the spiritual jade into thin slices and then carve runes on it. But generally speaking, jade talismans have no disadvantages except being expensive. However, talismans are disposable items. Ordinary spiritual jade is not too expensive, but the effect is no different from talisman paper. Moreover, carving talismans is time-consuming and laborious. Zhu Yun has never considered jade talismans. Sun Suanhua also said that such things are flashy and impractical. Zhu Yun deeply agrees with this, but when he heard that it was a sound transmission jade talisman, he immediately understood Fu Yazang's intention. Ordinary sound transmission talismans, after being used, transmit the sound. But the talisman was also destroyed, just like other talismans. But if there is a piece of spiritual jade as talisman paper, and the sound transmission talisman is not an offensive talisman. If it is supplemented by a formation, there is really such a magic weapon that can transmit sound at any time. So, this is a combination of formations and talismans, not ordinary talismans. Suddenly, Zhu Yun's eyes lit up, and he figured out the relationship between them, and he felt that he could do it. However, to make the same thing, it takes a lot of time and materials to practice. In fact, it is more like refining a magic weapon, but slightly different. Zhu Yun did not intend to make such a thing, but took out the several pieces of sound transmission jade talismans and gave each person one piece. After trying it, he found that as long as one of them spoke, the other three could immediately find it. Then he slowly increased the distance, first 5 miles, then 10 miles, and finally 50 miles. Except that the sound became smaller with the distance, there was no effect at all. In this way, they were extremely happy. After reuniting, Zhu Yun smiled and said, "Originally, I wanted to draw some sound transmission talismans, but now I don't need it." Indeed, Mo Tianlun played with the jade talisman in his hand and said, "It only takes a little spiritual power to use it, and it will not damage the spiritual jade. I have to say that this Fu Yazang is really a genius. But this kind of thing is not very useful after all. Although the magic weapon of sound transmission is rare in Yezhu, it is not too precious." Jinlun shook his head and said expressionlessly. He did not look up to the sound transmission jade talisman, nor did he belittle it. For those of them who are in the Jindan stage, if they encounter danger and want to ask for help, it is too late to use the sound transmission jade talisman. Those who can escape have already escaped, and those who are going to die will be dead by the time the reinforcements arrive. If it is used in some sects, it is tasteless and a pity to throw it away, just like chicken ribs. On the contrary, they need to extend the defense line and communicate information about the monster tide at any time. This sound transmission jade talisman can be recycled, which is not a bad thing. Okay, now that we have this thing, let's go to the Juhao Mountains as soon as possible. Jinlun was worried that those monsters would move too fast and hurt the few remaining juniors in their sect. Jinlun, don't worry yet. Mo Tianlun took out a map from his storage bag and spread it on the ground. Zhu Yun looked at it and saw that it was a map of Yezhu. I saw Mo Tianlun pointing at the mountain range that divided the entire map into two halves and said, "We haven't decided who will be responsible for which side yet, So we can't rush it? Zuyun took the initiative and said, Master Tianlun, I will guard the easternmost side. He guessed in his mind that most of the monster beasts might move eastward, but were restricted by the swamps connected to Bingzhou, and then turn south. In this way, he would be able to encounter a large wave. What about you? Mo Tianlun turned to look at the other two people. It all depends on the sect master's orders. Okay, Mo Tianlun pointed at 3 points on the map and said, the golden will is next to fellow Daoist Chen, I am in the middle, and the yin will is in the west. That's it? Zuyun took out some thunder talismans from his arms and distributed them to everyone, saying, those monsters are naturally afraid of thunder. These thunder talismans are for your self-defense. Do not use them casually unless absolutely necessary. Mo Shenlun pondered for a moment and said, then, will the Demon King be afraid? Zuyun was stunned and said with a wry smile, the Demon Kings may be afraid, but those Demon Kings are all at the nascent soul stage. I'm afraid this thunder talisman is not powerful enough. The Jushin Lei talisman is only an intermediate level talisman, and it is considered good if it can kill the pill-forming stage. This requires the person to stand motionless like a wooden stake during the pill formation stage, so that he can be killed with one talisman. The demonic will didn't care, and he put it into his arms unceremoniously, and then said with a smile, that's right, if we really meet the Demon King, we won't have a chance to use it. Don't worry, fellow Daoist Chen, we will help you collect it as much as possible. Some demon pills. Zuyun originally wanted to say this, but he was a little embarrassed. At this time, Mo Tianlun said it instead, and he couldn't help but blush. After touching his nose, Zuyun said, I don't insist on the demon pill, let's focus on killing the demon beasts. After saying that, he took out some more earthen wall talismans and said, you have seen these talismans before. If you really encounter the Demon King, you can stop him for a moment. Whether you can run or not depends on you. One breath is enough. Mo Tianlun took it over happily and said with a smile, we know many natural forbidden areas in the Zhuhao Mountains, and the 3 points I just marked are also nearby, don't be afraid. Zuyun nodded, said nothing more, took out the flying boat, then jumped up, raised his hands to the 3 of them and said, see you later. See you later. The speed of the flying boat was extremely fast, and Zuyun disappeared without a trace in the blink of an eye. For them, there are no outsiders here, and the yin chakra no longer has any scruples about speaking. Sect Master, the origin of this boy is unknown, and you have never asked why you are so polite to him. Mo Tianlun glanced at him indifferently, then turned to Jinlun and said, do you think the same way? Jinlun nodded slowly. Obviously, the two of them were very puzzled by what Motion Sect was doing. But since the magic wheel has been helping Zuyun, they can only do their best. Short-sighted. The magic wheel looked to the east, which was the direction Zuyun left. After a few breaths, he uttered these 4 words. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 409. After several hours, Zuyun had already flown to the edge of Bingzhou. Looking to the south, the Zhuhao Mountains were already visible. Zuyun looked around from a high place and did not find any movement of monsters, which meant that it would take a long time for the monsters to rush here. It would be better to take this opportunity to think about the strange talisman. He turned the direction of the flying boat and let it go south. He sat cross-legged, took out the strange talisman, and then used the Breaking Void Spirit Eye technique to look over. Who would have thought? It would be better if he didn't need it. When he looked at it, the complicated runes suddenly twisted and rotated in his eyes. Zuyun felt that his thoughts were also taken away, and the whole person immediately became drowsy. He had no time to be surprised or resist. The whole person seemed to have lost his mind and there was no movement. If someone saw this scene, they might think he was a plant. The flying boat was driven by spirit stones and did not need to be controlled. It went all the way south. It flew deep into the Juhao Mountains, and after the spiritual power in the spirit stone was exhausted, it fell head first. In the valley not far away, there was a village consisting of more than 10 mortal families. Several children were playing in the open space. Originally, they saw the golden light flashing, and they were still shouting and saying that they hadn't seen an immortal for a long time. But they never thought that the golden light would take a sharp turn and fall straight down. Suddenly, the children were completely dumbfounded. Will the immortal fall to death? One of the kids with the foo haircut scratched his head and said, "How should I know? I'm not an immortal." "Yeah, this is the first time I've seen an immortal fall. Why don't we go and have a look? You're so brave. If the immortal isn't dead, aren't you afraid that he'll catch you?" Afu said with disdain, "If the immortal isn't dead, he'll definitely fly away before we get there." "What if he's dead?" a babyish voice asked. "Are you stupid? If he's dead, can't we take off his clothes and take him home, and let our mother make new clothes for us?" When they heard that they had new clothes to wear, the children's eyes lit up. While the adults in the village went out hunting, the women had no time to take care of them, so they ran over there in a flash. For a moment, the children on the open space went into the forest. At this time, in the demon refining tower, Zhu Feng finished his practice again. He opened his eyes, frowning. This time, the gains from his practice did not meet his expectations. Or rather, far less than that. Similarly, absorbing the power in the blood pool was far less than the first time. He didn't know that the blood in the blood pool was to him like some precious spiritual medicines to ordinary cultivators. The first time you swallow it, the effect is the best. As the number of swallows increases, the effect of the pill will become worse and worse. At the end of swallowing, it may no longer have any effect. The more precious the spiritual medicine is, the more so. For example, when Zuyun used the 10,000-year-old blood ginseng to refine the longevity pill for Menguia, the first pill could make up 100 years of life, but the second pill could only make up 70 years. It's the same. Of course, if Zhu Feng waited for a certain period of time until his body completely absorbed and refined the power in the blood pool for his own use, then the impact of entering the blood pool again would be minimal. But Zhu Feng, who wanted to reach the Jindan stage quickly, would never think of this problem. Not to mention, he didn't have much experience in cultivation. It seems that there must be some kind of restriction, but the demon refining tower cannot tell where the problem lies, He set his eyes on the black ball. Zhu Feng didn't know that even if the previous owner of the demon refining tower could leave relevant information, he would never have thought that someone would be so lacking in common sense of cultivating immortals. Forget it, let's leave. There are so many casual cultivators in the world, which means that hard practice alone cannot break through and advance. Otherwise, why are there so many people killing people to rob treasures? Fighting for cultivation resources is one part, and killing, maybe it is to break through from fighting. Zhu Feng pondered quietly for a while, but vaguely remembered the swordsmanship taught to him by Jian. Sword cultivators should fight to support fighting, and comprehend the swordsmanship in fighting. Zhu Feng is not stupid, and he can draw inferences from one example, so he thinks that going out to fight more may indeed have miraculous effects. After deciding, he slowly stood up. However, Zhu Feng did not go down along the light door, but stepped gently towards a dark place. The next moment, he was already outside the tower. Behind him was the huge demon refining tower. Standing quietly at the copper door, Zhu Feng held one hand on the copper door pull ring. He was afraid that Zuyun was hiding somewhere else. Once the spiritual power around him surged, he would hide back in the demon refining tower without hesitation. He was not invincible in the tower, but he could guarantee that he would not die. He stood there for about an hour, and the sky darkened. When the surroundings were all in darkness, Zhu Feng breathed a sigh of relief, thinking that Zhu Yun was not there. With a move of his mind, a rumbling sound came from all around, and the demon refining tower was shrinking at a speed visible to the naked eye. When it shrank to the size of a forearm, Zhu Feng made a move with his hand, and the demon refining tower fell lightly into his palm. Zhu Feng did not put away the demon refining tower, but held it tightly in one hand, treating it as a dagger. The shape of the demon refining tower itself is pointed at the top and wide at the bottom, like a thorn. And through the black ball, he knew that the materials used to build the demon refining tower were all extremely rare materials. Even if the Wuying Patriarch came, it would be impossible to destroy a diamond for refining monsters. Therefore, he also believed that the demon refining tower was a good magic weapon for hurting people. Holding it tightly in his hand, Zhu Feng looked around. It was a little scary to be quiet. But this did not have much impact on Zhu Feng. When he was in the sea, he practiced for more than 3 years and was often single. That was because, if there was a living creature, he would be killed by him and become part of the magic power in his body. Zhu Feng randomly chose a direction and took a step lightly. Suddenly, he felt something was wrong. Strange, if I remember correctly, shouldn't this be all swamps? He frowned, raised his right foot and stomped on the ground a few times, feeling very solid. Could it be that Zhu Yun's doing? Oh, he can also set up formations. Could it be that he is not here, so he set up a 9 transformations and 9 suns formation here? Zhu Feng had experienced life and death several times, and he was very suspicious. Once he had this thought, he could no longer stop. He stopped moving his feet, but suddenly threw the demon refining tower in his hand, then jumped up and stood on the demon refining tower. Zhu Feng actually stepped on the demon refining tower and rushed straight into the sky. In just a blink of an eye, Zhu Feng triggered the changes of the 9 transformations and 9 suns. As a formation pattern passed through the black curtain, the offensiveness of the entire formation was activated. The scene in front of him suddenly became brighter and dazzling, and 9 suns appeared out of thin air in the sky and smashed towards Zhu Feng. Zhu Feng relied on the demon refining tower to back him up, and he was not afraid at all. Instead, he squinted his eyes and felt the formation coming from the sun's attack. This is the 9 palaces. He immediately discovered that the 9 suns were arranged in the 9 palaces, with 3 suns in front, middle, and back, and guessed that Zhu Yun was not here. Zhu Feng got the true teachings of Sun Xuanhua on the 9 transformations and 9 suns formation. At most, he could not match Zhu Yun in the formation, but his understanding of the formation was not much weaker than Zhu Yun. From this arrangement alone, he could see that this formation was activated by himself, not controlled by Zhu Yun. Humph, you dare to use the 9 transformations and 9 suns formation to trap me? Zhu Yun, you used 80 changes, so what? Zhu Feng sneered and muttered to himself, then stepped on the demon refining tower and wandered in the air in a strange route. The 9 round suns arranged in the 9 palaces seemed to have lost their target, like a headless fly dancing wildly. Until the sun's spiritual power was exhausted and finally dissipated in the formation, the entire 9 transformations and 9 suns formation became a dead formation. When the spiritual power was exhausted, the formation did not change at all. Or, it is the 82nd change, the incomplete formation. Zhu Feng laughed, with an inexplicable sense of accomplishment in his heart. Using the skills learned from Sun Xuanhua, he broke the formation set by Zhu Yun. This feeling is not ordinary. He laughed wildly, and then jumped down from the demon refining tower. As the array pattern of the soul-inducing array lit up, countless self-destruct arrays were activated. In the air, the spiritual power became wild. The spiritual stones of the self-destruct arrays gushed out spiritual power and gathered together. for Zhu Feng, who was in the foundation building period. Even one of them could blow him to pieces. After a breath, the first activated self-destruct array exploded. Boom! In addition to the loud noise, the fire seemed to be lightning from the ground, illuminating the night sky. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 410. Zuyun set up a series of self-destruction formations, one after another, and the formations were connected. As long as one spirit guiding array is activated, all self-destruction arrays will be activated. Hundreds of self-destruction formations exploded one after another with a huge noise, like the sky and the earth falling apart. And the fire continued to explode, making the sky here as bright as day. Hundreds of miles away, several people in the Dan formation stage were sitting in a group, and in the middle of them were Sword 15 and Sword 2. Xianxia had one of his arms cut off and had already woken up. The situation in Sword 15 is not too good. Although sword cultivators have strong combat power, their protective abilities are no different from ordinary cultivators of the same realm. Xianxia was hit by the magic wheels of Jinlun and Yinlun one after another, and his condition was very bad. There was no elixir on anyone's body. They had fought hard for a long time with Tang Tiangong's men in Xian City in Chuzhou, and the elixir had long been exhausted. I originally thought of getting some elixirs after returning to Wanjian Mountain, but it turned out that not long after I stood on the mountain, the entire mountain was refined and taken away by Zuyun. Then, they followed a group of beasts and fought hard for a long time. Although they were not exhausted, they were powerless once someone was injured. After all, Xianxia's cultivation level was much higher, and he was at the peak of the late stage of pill formation anyway. Furthermore, he only had one arm cut off, so the injury was much lighter than that of Xian 15, and there was no fear for his life. Second brother, there's something going on over there. Xianxia pointed to the west and said. The movement was quite big. It didn't look like it was caused by a fight between the demon kings. Instead, it looked more like the self-destruction of a magic weapon. Xianxia guessed expressionlessly. He is well informed and has never seen a self-destruction formation. This is Zuyun's improvement from the 5 elements exorcism formation. And that formation was accidentally developed by Tang Tiangang himself. Self-destruction. Everyone frowned, wondering which sect was in danger during its foundation building period. Could it be that the ordinary disciples of the talisman sect encountered a tide of beasts? Then when they ran out of talismans, some magical weapons exploded themselves. Someone said. It's possible. Xianxia was silent for a long time, then stood up and said, let's go over and have a look. Second brother, you are still injured. The others hurriedly stopped. Snort. Xianxia snorted coldly and said, it's just a broken arm. Xianxia, haven't become a cripple yet. The boundless anger made everyone shiver. Xianxia said, second brother, you know we don't mean this. Besides, what's so good about fighting monsters in the foundation building stage? Furthermore, if there is the Demon King is there, what should I do? Xianxia stared at Xian 11 until Xian 11 looked down with hair all over his body, and then he said, if there is a Demon King, how can those in the foundation building stage have a chance to self-destruct magical weapons? They must have encountered a tide of beasts. With no way to retreat, we blew up the magic weapon. And on this trip, I will wait to get some more animal blood or demon pills, which can help us replenish our spiritual power. Their sword cultivators do not have high requirements for spiritual power. Although demon power and spiritual power are different, they are still essentially the same. However, the effect of refining spiritual power through demon pills is not very high, but now that they are impoverished, they can only do this. Everyone's eyes lit up and they all looked at the dying Xianxia. If you want to save him, you can only supplement it with external spiritual power, so that he can have a chance of survival. It would be great if we had an alchemist here. Everyone has this thought in their minds, but they also know that there is no one in Yeosu who can refine the corresponding elixir for them. All died under their sword from Wanjian Mountain. Second brother, what about 15? Naturally, Jian 15 could not go with him, so Jian 19 suddenly asked. That's right, Jian Er said, in this way, you and 20 are the weakest, so we can take care of 15 here. Remember not to run around. The deeper you go in this swamp, the more likely you are to encounter someone. Monster. And there's something special about this swamp that our spiritual senses can't even detect. I got it, second brother, don't worry. Jian Jeju said quickly. Jian Er nodded, then rose into the air and flew towards that direction. Everyone behind him followed suit. Considering that there is only the foundation building stage there, the monsters shouldn't be that powerful, at most they will only be numerous. As long as there is no demon king, they can naturally retreat safely. As for the previous bird demons, they had never seen them again and had almost been forgotten. At this time, all the self-destruction formations have ended, and what is left here is a huge pit. The water flows downward. The surrounding sewage poured down with sludge. No matter how big the pothole is, it is quickly filled up. Looking from top to bottom, compared with other places, except for the absence of those aquatic trees, there is no trace of the explosion at all. The surging spiritual energy in the air slowly calmed down. Bailey does not take too long for everyone in the pill formation stage. They flew at full speed and didn't even have to fly for half an hour. Soon, several black spots appeared in the sky. Under the cover of night, you can't even spot it without looking carefully. Under Jian Er's instruction, they all changed into black clothes. Although they were not afraid of the beast tide, they suffered a lot of losses under Zuyun one after another, so they had to be careful. Second brother, it seems there is no beast tide. One of them flew back to Jian Er from a low place and whispered. Just now Jian Er specially sent him to check, but found nothing. Not only was there no beast tide, but there was not even a single beast tide's footprints. In the sewage, some mud that is lighter than water naturally floats on top. By the time they arrived, no trace of the floating mud could be seen. They couldn't see that there was actually an endless abyss underneath. It's strange. It's said to be a tide of beasts, but there are no traces of monsters. It's said to be a magic weapon from the foundation building stage that self-destruct, but there's no smell of blood in the air. Jian Erbe couldn't figure it out. Logically speaking, if it reached the point of self-destructing the magical weapon, he would definitely lose his life. For disciples of the Zhaofu sect, their natal magic weapons are all standard talisman-shaped flying carpets. And they usually don't have other magic weapons, at most they are magic pens for drawing talismans. Or something like an inkstone. Second brother, there are not even fragments of the magic weapon. Have we come to the wrong place? Another person flew in front of him from another place and said. Jian Er looked over with a cold expression, are you questioning me? Don't dare. He almost wanted to kneel down in vain. The Jian Er of today is no longer the Jian Er of the past. It looked the same, but everyone knew how much anger he was suppressing in his heart after breaking his arm. No one dares to touch Jian Er's bad luck at this time. You all go down and have a look, search the spread area, maybe, these monsters are hiding under the swamp. Jian Er had already developed an obsession in his heart and vowed not to give up until he found the person, so he made an extremely irrational decision. Everyone was waiting, with every possible reluctance in their hearts, but no one wanted to stand out at this moment, lest they bear Jian Er's wrath alone. In desperation, he had to fall slowly. Soon, someone fell into the swamp. With luck, outside the pothole, the swamp won't have much impact, and you just need to fly again. But what was unlucky was that even within the pothole area, for some unknown reason, a powerful suction force was produced. Even in the realm of danger stage, it is impossible to get out of trouble. Help me! Xianxia screamed in shock. He felt as if someone was grabbing his foot tightly and he couldn't pull it out no matter how hard he tried. Coming! Jian 17 and Jian 18, who had just escaped from trouble, rushed over, each holding a hand, trying to take Jian 13 away from the swamp. But even if they tried their best, it was as if they were pulling a huge boulder weighing 100,000. Not only did Xianxia not rise even 1 point, but it actually made him sink quite a bit. Second brother, hurry up, call second brother. Xianxia used his strength and reminded him quickly. He was afraid that if he shouted, he would let out the breath he was holding, so he could only remind Xianxia to speak out. Xianxia opened his mouth and shouted, "Second brother, help, help." As Xianxia opened his mouth, 2 people on the other sides also said, "Second brother, I can't get out. Hurry up, someone help me." Once upon a time, there was no place in Yaesu that they could not go to. Even the entire Ya realm is like this. But now, they are inexplicably stuck in the Bingzhou swamp. In mid-air, Jian remained unmoved. As early as when Xianxia called for help, he realized something was wrong and did not act rashly. After a long while, he finally said, "You all are back." Everyone was shocked, and the surrounding area instantly became quiet. It's as if there is no one here at all under the cover of night. The people who were helping also forgot to use their strength at this time. Xianxia and the others who were sinking into the swamp were suddenly pulled into the swamp as if someone was pulling from below. After a while, silence returned here again. Second brother. Those people spoke in unison, raised their heads and shouted angrily at Jian. "It can't be saved, and it will be the same if I go down." Jian said calmly. But these words were like a sharp knife stabbing into their hearts. "You haven't even been able to save me, so how can you say you can't?" Invisibly, the gap between them and Jian arose. The 3 people trapped in the swamp were soon sucked into a strange space by suction. When others come to their senses and find that they are not dead, they have not had time to rejoice. A childish and abrupt voice suddenly sounded. "Welcome to my world."